Hello, you are now entering the infinite void. Hang on tight. We cannot save you now.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I'm your co-host Jacob.
And I'm your co-host Matty, and this week's topic is biotechnology. So I guess a bit of a departure from the usual sort of space, physics-y kind of things that we do into biology. Not my background, but I think we'll try and muddle through it.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is one of those things where I'm super interested in it, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah. I think it's very much something that is very sort of sci-fi, isn't it?
Yes.
And probably a lot of people immediately when they think of biotechnology have like some idea, but probably couldn't even point to one paper or one like newspaper report they've actually read about it. So
yeah, no, I'd agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think from what we kind of like discussed prior to this, we're gonna just be going through some of the really cool technologies that people are working on and some of the ideas that people have got, and just seeing what the future holds for humanity, because I do genuinely believe that it will be aided by these kinds of technologies. We're not just going to be forever purely biological, I don't think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, definitely. So I guess the big one with the sort of announcements that have come out in the last couple of months is Neuralink, which is another Elon Musk company, sort of space agey stuff. So shall we start with that, I guess, and a bit of background on that? Yeah,
let's do that. So, do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to?
I guess we'll start with the like press conference that they did quite recently. Was that at the end? Was that October, September time?
Yes,
months ago now.
Was this the one in September with the pigs that they had on?
Yes, with the pigs.
Yes. Gertrude.
So Neuralink is a company by Elon Musk that is trying to sort of tackle brain interfacing. So I guess we'll sort of delve into actual techniques a bit later on, but at its heart is this idea that they want to be able to create an interface between your brain and the neurons within your brain and almost your thoughts and a computer that is able to do stuff that your body can't do.
Yeah.
And at this press conference, they had a pig that they'd sort of put this thing into. So it's quite a small device. I think, was it still on top of the skin rather than being complete? So it was sort of under the skin and there's like a port that comes out of the skin sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's the sort of plan for it. But they were able to sort of read, I guess you call them brain waves or brain activity from this device that's sort of implanted into the brain. And as we've seen with, the classic things of you can get people to play guitars and stuff and watch their brain activity, they want to be able to use people's thoughts and people's brain activity to do stuff with. So in the press conference, it was very much like we have the physical ability to be able to put these very intricate things into the brain and get readings from it. I think probably the next step will be able to sort of doing something with those readings that is useful to people rather than just looking at what the brain's doing. So.
Yeah, I was going to say this because when I first heard about Neuralink, I was kind of on the hype train that it was basically putting a computer in your head and who needed to learn anything because you can just search the internet with your thoughts and all this kind of stuff. But actually, it's pretty cool from what people have from the research that they've done so far, because it's essentially called a brain-machine interface, isn't it?
Yeah.
And because when Elon talks about it, he always kind of romanticizes it a little bit and talks about the idea how, with your thumbs, you're slow at getting data across to somebody else. So, when you think of a thought, for instance, you have to think it, type it, and then send it, and it takes time. And his whole argument was, can you imagine if whatever I was thinking, you instantly receive, how quick innovation and how quick everything would kind of kick off. But from this presentation that they did, they were actually showing really positive results with memory loss and hearing loss and mental health illnesses as well. It was pretty cool how you could monitor like even this pig's brain and see where it had like drops in like serotonin and stuff like that, and then try and figure out if it's the environment or if it's its own well-being and stuff like that. And I thought it was really, really interesting. It was kind of a bit Black Mirror-y,
Yeah.
but it was awesome.
Yeah, it was very odd seeing this pig with this thing on its head, and we were able to almost like read its thoughts. It is really Black Mirror sort of thing, isn't it? But, yeah, they do seem to be doing some really cool research into it, and I think, as you said, the research into sort of like mental health and like degenerative diseases is really interesting. But for me, the thing that stood out was the technological like ability to do this and the problems that they've overcome, because they showed like the machine that they have to use to do it.
Yeah.
This is not something that, you know, a doctor can just do a minor surgery, stick it in your head, and you're ready to go, sort of thing. They've developed this whole almost this like robot, the sort of thing that they would use for very complex brain surgery, and it's the actual interface itself is these very, very tiny wires that they sort of precision implant into your brain with this robot.
Don't they actually like connect to like the end of your like brain neurons and stuff?
Yeah. So I think they sort of find where your neurons, I imagine they join, or there's some sort of branching or something, and then they put these wires onto them, which is, even if you disregard like the interfacing side of things, that is a like great medical advancement that will almost certainly be used for surgery and things in the future. So you know, they were saying about how they've managed to reduce the amount of bleeding and stuff on the brain, because that could be obviously quite a big concern with brain surgery. But if we can get to the point where we can successfully put tiny wires with, I think they were definitely sort of below micrometer precision, like that. If they can do that, because they were talking about how they were being limited by the optics. So like with an optical microscope, with something you can actually see, the wavelength of light limits the amount of like resolution you can have, sort of thing. And they were sort of coming up against that limit, which means they're sort of into the hundreds of nanometers precision. So it's really interesting technique that they've sort of developed to do that, and the sort of machinery that goes alongside it is really cool.
Just a quick like thing off the top of my head. Just thinking about that, is there like a chance that any of these parts could like break or something when you've had them put in your head? Because like just me thinking off the top of my head, like I built my PC, I've ran into problems with it when things have like not worked, or something's gone dead, or there's been a shortage or something. Like, because I was doing my research for this, and like even this Neuralink, it's got a 12-hour charge. And I'm assuming it's going to be kind of similar to like an Apple Watch with like a MagSafe kind of thing. Like it just pops on and then it kind of charges, kind of thing. Weird. Like I don't even know actually. That's a good point. How is it going to charge? You can have like a MagSafe on your pillow, like the Matrix.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's induction charging. It there's the wires that go into the brain and the computer bit itself, and then there's like a small like MagSafe thing that sits just. I don't know if it's visible or not, but it sits just sort of at the skin level, so that you can connect it like an Apple Watch sort of thing while you sleep.
Because the link itself it's just under an inch, isn't it? Yeah, it's 0.9 inches wide and then 0.3 inches tall. So it actually is kind of very similar to like a MagSafe for an Apple Watch, like that little circle thing that you kind of drop it on. So that for me would be one of the things, because like it's like you're saying, like with all these wires and stuff that you're attaching to the neurons and stuff, like even if the process is really, really quick and you're in and out and it's done and it's like fast, I can imagine it would be annoying if like you've got a few of your wires that kind of like burn themselves out, or the duds or something like that, and then you've got to go back in and have a few of them rewind and stuff.
I know we've both got like other technologies to talk about that are a bit more normal, I guess, but the one for me with this sort of brain interfacing stuff is how susceptible it is to sort of damage and things, and how invasive it is. You know, like with when I was at university, our department did quite a lot of sort of brain imaging and stuff. And for decades, they've been trying to take sort of traditional brain imaging and move it outside the body and in a very non-invasive way. So, like the classic MRI, you have to lie still in like this massive tube for like potentially tens of minutes, sort of thing. And they've developed this. It's called MEG, magnetoencephalography, something like that. I never did this sort of stuff, but it's basically like a bike helmet that you put on. And I think personally, the way forward with these technologies, I can see this stuff being useful for specialist things, and like you said, with sort of like things like dementia and stuff like that. But for normal people who are trying to get something, just like a little tech boost out of it, I don't personally see this being the way forward. Oh, my camera's gone there.
Sorry, we just had a little technical difficulty. Matty, as you were saying, we were talking about the average person using Neuralink.
Yeah, so as I said, like I could see Neuralink being sort of very useful for more complex things, people with dementia, that sort of thing. But for an average person just trying to get this sort of like tech boost, someone like me into tech, I'd like to be able to send text messages from my body, sort of thing. I don't see this sort of quite invasive surgery being particularly useful, and probably more like wearables or things actually like on the skin rather than in the body being more useful. Sort of solution.
This is what I was kind of going to say about it, because it's cool, and like you see those videos of people as well. Like I don't know if you've seen them, but like when people, because there's a lot of people that like do this kind of stuff themselves, don't they? They'll put like a chip or something in their arm, and then they'll walk up. They'll have like their own door that opens when they walk up to it and stuff like that. And like it's cool, but like for me anyway, like with Neuralink, I kind of agree with you. Like unless you're like massively getting a level up with like your cognitive ability as well. Like if you're just super smart all of a sudden and you can just kind of like search the internet with your thoughts and be able to like grab data from whenever you want and stuff like that, then it's cool. Then it makes sense for everybody to go and get it, because whoever doesn't have one is going to be at a severely disadvantage compared to everybody else that does have one. But yeah, it's like you're saying, if for like the first, say, decade, if it's only just for like mental health or like certain diseases and stuff, is it really worth going through all of that just so you can get the kettle to boil through thought and Wi-Fi?
Like you said about like putting chips under your skin to, pay for things or open doors and stuff. Is it really worth embedding, a chip into your palm of your hand when the exact same functionality could be achieved with, a ring with the chip in it, for example, or a watch or something like that, or even just a little sticky like tattoo kind of thing put onto your body? Is it worth it? And once you factor in what happens if it gets damaged, or if it sort of just wears down or runs out of battery and stuff, I don't particularly see the everyday user using embedded technology stuff for this sort of like tech boost kind of thing. But as a medical procedure and as a medical device, I think this is really interesting. I'm certain will in the years to come be used massively for diagnostics and treatment of certain things. So.
I'd be interested to see in the future if it kind of goes down like an Orwellian kind of viewpoint too, as well, with like if work has access to seeing what you're thinking about and what you're searching. Do you know what I mean? Be like, within these hours, you're not allowed to do these things, and they're able to like visit. Because like that, I don't agree with it, but that could be good too. Like, say if you own a business and you've got a load of employees and they've all got Neuralink, like you could utilize that to figure out a way to have your employees like super like pumped and ready to work and in the right environment. Do you know what I mean? And you could use that by like monitoring their levels and seeing like what environments affect how they work, who they're sitting next to, what kind of workload it is and stuff like that. So I think it has potential to like really, really change the world. But
Yeah.
it's like you're saying right now, it's like there's almost not enough advancements in other areas for it to be a good reason for every single person on planet Earth to get one.
Yeah, and like you said, with the, it would be good for a company to be able to monitor its employees and stuff. You don't, if you go too far with it, you get the issues of like security and potential for hacking and stuff. I'm not sure. Well, we've seen that people can hack pretty much everything. You see people
Yeah.
hacking election booths and running like computer games on it and stuff. If you've got something like this implanted into your brain, would it be a case of they hack into it and presumably, well, this thing has got a battery in it. It is powered. What if they just put a couple of volts down the wires into your head? Like,
Yeah.
There's definitely things to be cautious about with this sort of stuff.
I was just reading this here. It says that it requires a 12-hour charge, and then after that, the user will need to wirelessly charge it.
I presume the wireless stuff is what they. Is
that just like MagSafe kind of
stuff?
Like
the MagSafe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just going to be like you're walking around and it's charging through the Wi-Fi or something.
Directed energy.
Yeah. Because I was going to say that can't be good either, though. Do you know what I mean? Because like I swear, when I was a kid, they always used to tell you like don't like sleep or have too many electromagnetic stuff like around you. Is that even a thing? Because
I don't think you can do like the calculations for like the radiation hazard on this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I know you shouldn't be putting your head close to Wi-Fi routers for extended periods of time. That's not great. But yeah, it depends again what it's doing. If it's the one thing I actually don't know about Neuralink is the data. Presumably, at the moment, the data is being transferred via like the MagSafe sort of connection each night. Well, what if they wanted, presumably the next step would be that they want live monitoring of people's health and people's mental well-being. Well, if you want live monitoring, you have to have some sort of transmitter in it.
Yeah.
And at that point, you've then got like a mobile phone transmitter receiver under your skull, doing stuff.
I can imagine that's going to be the way that they would want to go as well, because like even if when you like look at Tesla, they have like the rollout updates, don't they? And I can imagine in the future that's what you'd want with Neuralink. If there's like a problem with it, you can just mass roll out an update and everybody updates. But then also the flip side of that is like you're saying, if the update's got a bug in it or something and you mass roll that out, everybody could have huge problems without really even like consenting to it.
Yeah, and the hacking then becomes a massive issue if you're able to wirelessly transfer stuff into people's heads.
God, can you imagine that? You're effectively like hacking what people can see and think and feel. That's like a nightmare.
Well, like I said, the nightmare thing is that you hack into it, and again, I'm not a biology sort of student in any way, but you would be able to like just shunt a load of electrical energy down the wires into people's neurons, which presumably would not be good. That would be like the nightmare scenario. But even the sort of tame scenario would be that someone hacks into it and just changes what's being recorded. So rather than saying, "Oh, your mental health is in this state," it would hack into it and change it, and then suddenly your doctor thinks that you're like
unstable.
Depressed. Yeah, something like that. Which if you work in an industry, say as a pilot, for example. I know pilots sort of have to have sort of cognitive tests and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, if you change the results of it and suddenly you go to the doctors, your Neuralink's been faulty and it says that you're no longer fit to work, that's like obviously a massive issue. So
yeah, no, I hadn't even thought about that. That's a really good point. Because even like teachers and stuff as well, like if you got hacked or something and somebody put something on it that you shouldn't have, like it could ruin your career.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
It's like nothing to do with you kind of thing.
Yeah, putting sort of inappropriate things on there. Or I guess the flip side is if we, the long shot thing is you start using this thing to be able to communicate and being able to, pay for stuff. Would it be possible to strip someone's bank details out of their head. Like it's yeah. There's lots of sort of facets to it, and I think you can get not carried away, but this is sort of speculation about what this stuff is even possible to do at this point, isn't it? So,
yeah, it'd be interesting going forward looking at stuff like that, because even like with like world leaders and stuff, when they're coming out and then they're giving their like talk to the nation, people will like go in and hack it and be like, that's not what you actually said in the meeting, we've got the recorded version here.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. It'd be weird.
Yeah, I mean, if it is a case of things being transmitted to your head for sort of data backup or for communications purposes, then like any signal, it's susceptible to sort of hacking and what would you call it? Interception. And like you said, for me, my life's relatively boring. But for world leaders, for people in sort of critical industries, these sorts of things, what they are potentially thinking is important. And, it's sort of an issue. So
it'll be interesting to see what comes from this, because I think it's really, really interesting, because I hadn't really thought about the whole idea of if it starts transmitting, but it probably will. And it's just
I think for me that's a big sort of step that has a lot of problems that need to be addressed. Because with that, obviously, there's a lot more applications for it, and it does become a lot more useful. The big one is obviously communication via thoughts. Could we send text messages or WhatsApp messages via our thoughts? That's, I guess, almost the end game, isn't it? That's the ultimate sort of thing.
Oh my God, can you imagine, right, if you could like think of something and then I could like just think it, you instantly understand what I'm thinking in whatever language you want to know what I'm thinking in?
Yeah.
It'd be insane. Like, imagine a world where you could literally just go to like China or Japan and just talk to somebody in your language, them talk back to you in their native language, and you both just understand each other, except you haven't learned each other's languages.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're like, you have to even question like what even is like a human interaction anymore. Like you've almost fundamentally changed what humans are.
Well, this is it. What do you think comes then? Do you think, because like this all sounds awesome, right? It sounds great. Like this future, I'm down to clown with it. I would love to be able to search the internet by thinking and all this kind of stuff, but like that could fundamentally change like the human being as well.
Presumably, in the space of a generation, you go from sort of us to people that don't ever talk.
Yeah, because like if you like, because I'm just thinking about it now. If you were in a pub, right, with our generation, and I'm sorry, I know I've just used a pub as an example, but this is what we're using. If you were in a pub in our generation, right, and like just think of like a normal night out or a bar or something, or you've gone out for food. Like, just imagine the room silent, but people are like nodding at each other and smiling and like having like weird internal conversations that everybody in the room is aware of, but you can't hear it unless you're part of it, and you can just start picking up on it. It's a weird world to be in. Like, same with school. Like, how would that work with school? Would you just kind of like, would all the kids sit there and then the tutor just kind of like eye stare at you and be like, yes, take in these thoughts?
This is the thing. Like, does education even need to exist at that point? Because, but when you learn stuff, my perception of it is I hear something, I hear a fact, it goes somewhere in my memory, and then later on, if I need to use that knowledge, I recall it from my memory somewhere and are able to write it down or speak about it, whatever. If your head is connected to the internet, there's no longer any need to learn stuff, because all of the information that would be in your memory is suddenly just accessible to you via the internet. There's no point in me, learning anything if I can just Google it via thought and it be in my head the same as a memory would be.
Yeah, that's the point. And as well, when you think about it, there wouldn't actually be any need for specialized roles, because you could walk into any role and instantly learn it.
Yeah.
Because Because even if you're not like say academically minded, you could just walk into like I don't know, say like some physics role that requires like a physics degree and just recall anything from a physics degree online when you need it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like I don't know what this equation is. Oh yes, I do. I'll just go on Google Images and quickly look at it, or I'll download this seminar quickly and just take all of the information from that and then regurgitate it back out.
Yeah. I mean, this, I've got a few more sort of like technologies that I'd like to talk about, but I guess before we move on to that, this is sort of the heart of one of my biggest concerns is that, like with all this stuff, we spoke about with like space tourism and things, this will become available to the rich first.
Yeah.
That's obvious. That's just what's going to happen. And there's obviously a lot of sort of social issues with what wealth can buy you. Wealth can already buy you better sort of health. It can already buy you a better education. It can already buy you a better life, effectively.
Yeah.
If you went to the point of, like we just said, we create these devices that you're able to, recall sort of any information you want. You're able to do all these things, and later on, you get sort of like also bodily enhancements. We can create prosthetics that allow you to run faster, or some sort of fake hormone creating device that allows you to need less sleep. All these sorts of things. You could take it to the extremes, and rich people are able to afford it. At that point, you've created a class of people that are not only like more wealthy and sort of higher class socially, they are physically and biologically more advanced than people, and you can.
It's kind of it's kind of like a runaway society, isn't it? When you get to that point, like you can't. There is nothing you can do then to be better than them.
No, like I can fully imagine like having a working class of people doing all the sort of crappy jobs, and then this sort of like upper class of people who have bought into this biotechnology being these sort of like utopian gods with sort of cognitive abilities and physical abilities that you can't even imagine. It gets, again, this is me probably just being a bit cynical and pessimistic, but it gets very weird very quickly once people can start buying into this stuff.
No, I agree with you, because like even if you were taking it from like a standpoint of like just like what's fair and like having like a level playing field, like when you look at history, when something's not been okay, humans have had the ability to like stand up and kind of fight for it if they don't really agree with it. And I'm not saying like that's always been the case in history, because there's been a lot of times where that's still been stamped out. But like living in a world where you have that kind of situation, you are not going to be able to outthink someone that has that capability. Like it's like playing chess against a pro and they're 100 moves ahead of you constantly.
Yeah. And even the like at the extremes, like the physical fighting back and like bringing down the the revolution sort of thing. You take it to the extremes where you've got these sorts of, this upper class of like mechs. That, it's really odd to think about what this could potentially lead to. But my personal view is
it's like domesticating the human race, isn't it? It's like giving a few people the keys to the castle, and then everybody else just either you can afford it or you can't afford it.
Yeah, but I guess that's Neuralink. We've probably got a bit of time just to...
You just made that sound so depressing. Neuralink sounds great, everyone. We're really excited for it. It's not going to be the end of the world.
I think for the foreseeable future, it's going to be a fantastic medical device and technique. And these sorts of things might trickle down into other things. But I guess we've got a bit of time just to discuss some of the other things that we sort of looked at and I've sort of hinted at in terms of biotechnology. So I actually came across a really, really interesting one.
Okay.
Sort of taking the issue on its head of not sort of creating things that go into the human body, but taking bits of the body and taking biological things and putting it into technology.
Okay. I like that.
And there's one which is I've seen and it's a bit weird, and then there's one which I think I'll start with the more normal one. So it's this idea of sort of growing organs from stem cells.
Yeah.
And this is a really interesting one. What they do is they essentially take stem cells, which are human cells that are unspecialized, so they have the ability to sort of morph into different types of cells. So they take those cells and then they build it on a this sort of framework, this biological framework of a heart. And I don't know the exact sort of things, but it's quite sort of general biological growth frame sort of thing. And they put the stem cells on it, and they've actually been able to grow a working heart. And I know they've done this with other stuff. I think one of the earlier ones was a trachea, like a windpipe, because that's quite a simple organism. But it's sort of like growing things from stem cells. You know, this idea of taking human body stuff and sort of growing it into something else, I think, is really interesting. And the second one that I looked at, and this is a bit weird, they've created these robotic fish. So they've got a non-biological fish thing, and it's got some styrofoam, you know, wires, batteries, these sorts of things. You know, the sorts of, like, basically remote control fish kind of thing. And then they've taken the muscles from a frog leg and attached it into this sort of robotic toy thing, and used the muscles as an actuator to move the fish around. So
What?
It's like a robotic fish toy that is being driven by frog muscles.
That's insane.
And like, you know, at the end of this thing, they talk about like the about how this could potentially be used in other things, but I think the end goal of this sort of technology is the sort of brain in jar kind of thing, where you're able to take cognitive things, you know, the brain and people, and hook them into technology. And it's kind of weird that we're already, because that to me is almost like it's sci-fi at that point, but to see that we're already sort of taking these first steps in putting biological things into effectively mech suits is kind of weird.
Yeah. It's funny you said that, because like when I was a kid, I always used to like think, well, the day that we can figure out how to print like organs and stuff, you can just live forever, because every time something gets a little bit old, we'll just print that part. You'll be walking around and you'll look a bit of a mess because some bits will be really old and some bits won't, but we'll just keep printing parts and you'll just be a walking embodiment of 1,000 years of not wanting to die kind of thing. But like with you saying that, like, yeah, that other side of it is also true, because it's not just about like printing like biological parts and like doing all those kind of advancements. It's like you're saying too, it's like moving the brain to like something else and all those kind of things. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think the brain is all, I guess my sort of take on it is there's almost like 3 steps to this. The first one is sort of 3 stages of development. The first one is things like prosthetics and, you know, creating limbs or organs that are functional as good as normal things. That's sort of the first step, and like, we're sort of getting there already. You know, we can create sort of robotic limbs, and we can create these sort of organs grown from various methods that work as they're meant to. The second stage is then the sort of like bio enhancement. You know, you could imagine fitting people with eyes that have sort of zoom capability or night vision and these sorts of things. That's the sort of like second step, and I know there's sort of technologies ongoing with that, and you know, giving people enhancements that the body doesn't have, which could just be as simple as, you know, creating a device that enables them to open doors or things like that. That's the sort of second step, I think. And then the third step is the brain and being able to control and utilize the brain properly, because it is just such a complex thing that it's almost like in its own category. No one, I know you've got the Neuralink thing that are trying to interface with it, but no one's taking these sorts of drastic steps of recreating brains and sort of doing these sorts of things with it. It's just so weird.
Do you know what would be interesting, actually, thinking about it? Just like what it would look like in like 100, 200 years time, because like the world that we live in now it's kind of so orientated around like like personal achievements and like things that humans can do. Do you know what I mean? So like sports or all those kind of things. It's like you've got a human that has practiced or has dedicated his life to this thing. He's very good at it or she's very good at it. And we're now watching them showing us how good they are. But like in 100 years, 200 years time, because it's kind of like touching on that area of like that new game that's coming out, Cyberpunk 2077. Like, will you have sports? Will you have all of these things in like 200 years time? Because would you dedicate your life to running when you can just go and get 2 robotic legs that can have you run a mile in under 5 minutes?
I think there is a sort of like inherently human thing about it. Like, we've built machines that can play chess better than people.
Yeah.
Like, you could sit down and watch a chess match between 2 robots or 2 sort of AIs that is better than any chess match that humans can do. Like, you can already do that, but still people watch the chess championships and people sort of spend lots of time learning to play chess because I think there's just something sort of inherently human about it, doing things. But
Yeah, to be fair, actually, it could go the other way. We could like keep sports as like the last safe thing and be like, if you want to devote your life to becoming a footballer, you're not allowed any enhancements. You got to stay 100% el natural, and we're going to watch you kick that football the way it was intended.
Yeah, I guess it applies to other things as well. Sort of like music. When you go to I can't imagine a sort of gig being as good if it was just robots or sort of a synthesizer just playing the stuff on stage.
Well, essentially, with Neuralink, wouldn't it? It'd be a silent disco, but with everybody shouting. And like, how far is it going to go? Like, is the Neuralink are you going to be able to send out transmissions to make people feel a certain way in that room? Like, because otherwise it could literally just be a silent disco where you are downloading these feelings of what it feels like to be at a show. Yep. And then you're like knocking on the door a little bit of simulation theory and is anything actually real, or are you just always downloading files to make yourself feel like you're doing something when you're not actually doing it?
Yeah, like literally, and like you could just have people eating gruel all day and sending them messages of, this is delicious roast beef. Like,
yeah, it's literally like the Matrix when you've got all the people like in those like fluid bags, like just using their bodies as energy to actually fuel the whole planet, and then we're just sending them signals being like, yes, you're on a beach, it's lovely. But one thing I was thinking about actually with like all these kind of enhancements for the future, especially ones with like brain, it'll be interesting for like when people are like on their deathbeds and stuff. I was thinking about this because I saw a TV show, I think it's done by Amazon, where it has that idea where you're about to die, but instead of like being put on like, I don't know, heroin or something, or like when you're on your deathbed and they what is it? What do they do? It's not heroin. Morphine, that's the one, yeah. But like, when they like just pump you full up of stuff so you have no idea what's going on and then you just kind of dance off into the dark. But like, with these kinds of things, would they be able to like make you think or see something that isn't actually there? So your last few minutes on Earth or your last day on Earth, you could like play out the thing that you wanted to. So say like if you've got Alzheimer's or something and it's actually quite sad watching like your granddad repeat himself loads and he's going back and forth, he doesn't know what he's doing, and you could like take him to this place where he gets like plugged into this machine and he can like relive his glory days for the last week of his life or something, and he goes out living the best moment in his life kind of thing.
But then you start asking that question, you get to the point of like, what is the point of doing anything? We all go to work each day and there's stuff we'd rather be doing. Why don't we just plug in and have a great time?
Yeah, well, or it falls back into your idea where all of the poor people on planet Earth, like 98% of people, are actually working, and then you get that 2% that are just plugged in all the time, living the best moments of whatever they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So what other sort of physical devices and stuff have you been looking at that will
So
cause our demise?
I've got nanobots for one.
Oh, God, great.
So I thought this one was pretty interesting because it kind of falls into the thing that I mentioned, I think it was last week or the week before, about the whole like grey goo hypothesis. That's the worst case scenario that we've got, where the nanobots decide, oh, we're just going to convert all matter into...
Oh, can I just pause you there for a second?
Go for it.
This week I came across a game called Universal Paperclip.
Okay.
And it is it's a sort of click game on web browser, and it's a really dumb game. It's just like a white screen with like numbers and graphs on it, and you start with nothing, and you click a button and you make a paperclip and sell it, and then you click it again, you make more, and then you get sort of like auto clippers. And this game, it cycles through, like you go through advancements of computing and creating drones and stuff, and the entire game builds up to you just turning the entire universe into paperclips.
That's hilarious. That's class.
I recommend people check it out. Universal Paperclip. It really is fun, but
that's class. Yeah. But no, so with the whole nanobots thing, so like the worst case scenario, you've got like the whole grey goo thing, which is the thing that we talked about, where you essentially code these nanobots to convert matter, and it goes wrong, and then they just convert everything in the visible universe into paperclips. But the good thing about nanobots, from the little bit of research that I did, is so it's predicted that these things are going to be flowing through our bodies by 2030, which I thought was actually pretty close.
Yeah, I'd have thought it'd be like 50 years out.
Yeah. And it seems really, really interesting. So from what they were saying in this was they're going to basically use these things as kind of like an artificial intelligence in your body to kind of look after your health and well-being. So it'll be able to monitor for tumors, cancer, blood sugar levels, energy levels, just everything in your body. It's going to be able to monitor it. And it seemed really cool because it kind of took the approach that it means in like a decade, you might have an app on your phone that can like tell you how many red blood cells you've got in your body. Or like, if you're not feeling well, your doctor can be sent a better like health sheet of you in real time than they would get you going to the doctors and taking a blood test kind of thing. And I was reading this and it actually kind of blew my mind because like I used to be a massive hypochondriac like when I was a little bit younger. Like anything was a little bit wrong with me, I was like, oh, it's the end. I'm going to die. I can't be saved. It's over kind of thing. And like, this would be insane for like that aspect of me. Because anything's wrong, you just check and it's going to tell you straight away if it is or if it isn't. And it's not, and I think the other thing that's great about this too is nothing's going to be missed. Do you know what I mean? The second you get a cancerous cell in your body, those nanobots are going to pick it up. It's not going to be like, oh, we missed it, and now you've got to have like chemo or something. Do you know what I mean? Everything's going to be always picked up like straight away.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. And the other thing that was really cool about it was like eating disorders and dietary things as well, because it can actually like go through and look at like how the cells are taking everything on. And that kind of blew my mind too, because if you go and mix nanobots in with Neuralink, like there's a full circle. Do you know what I mean? You've got this thing can check every part of your body, and then this other thing that can send that data to anyone or anything.
Yeah.
Like you're like a walking like doctor. Do you know what I mean? Because like you see there's a YouTube series about AI, and they talk about how like AI is getting really good at like noticing certain diseases and stuff. And they have this machine in India where I think it's for glaucoma actually, and this machine's got really good at like finding glaucoma in people before people actually know that they've got it. And essentially this nanobot thing is going to be like putting that into everybody at home. Like you get a top of the line AI health system put into your body at home, and it'd just be really interesting, because I wonder which way it will go. Because even for like insurance, right? If you've got nanobots in you and you've got health insurance, and they're going to be able to look at those nanobots and be like, you had a cigarette and it says on your contract that you don't smoke. It's like, no, I don't smoke. It's like, yeah, but you had one and now that's voided your contract. So like, we can see that because these nanobots picked up on this nicotine spike on the 31st of October kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it'll be interesting, like, going forward, because like now with like work and stuff, like even if you work with like heavy machinery and stuff, you have to, you get like drug tested and all that kind of stuff. But imagine like a real-time system where like these machines, or like there could be an app or something that has actual access to your health and well-being on the go. Like imagine like walking into work and as you go through the door, like your company being able to see like just your health and well-being for the morning. Like, oh, Matty's stressed today. We can see that he had high stress levels an hour ago. Is that on his journey, or has he had an argument with someone today? Like all these little things. Do you know what I mean? It's so like in your face.
Yeah, it gets very Orwellian, doesn't it? This sort of.
But at the same time, if it's done correctly, then it's also kind of utopian too. Because the only real way you're going to get utopia is if you take all of the worries away from humanity. But you kind of have to trust someone with that to get the ball rolling.
I think it's just sort of that trust element. You know, who is going to be controlling this? Who's going to be the one seeing all this data?
Yeah, it will be interesting, and I wonder if, because this is something that I didn't see, but I wonder if there's anything with like nanobots and reproductivity and stuff as well. Because I couldn't see anything on that, but I'd be interested in seeing if like there is anything you can do with that. Like say if you've got like, I don't know, a weak sperm count or something, if there's anything that like nanobots can do, help carry your swimmers along or something.
Yeah, I think the sort of possibilities are endless. Really, there's, you know, the human body is already such a complex thing, and you're trying to do complex things to it. There's just so many things that can happen, both good and bad. So,
well, this is the thing I think with humans is we just like to make everything as difficult and as overcomplicated as possible. Like it's not enough just to be for like, well, I am like I'm here, so I am. That's all that really matters. It's like, no, that's not good enough. We're going to sit here now and spend the next 2,000 years really trying to like figure out what the hell consciousness is in the first place. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. But the only other like biotechnology I've got, and it's only a little bit, is this, because I didn't actually know this existed. So biosensors and biotattoos. And essentially what it is it's like, it kind of looks like a part of a circuit board tattooed to your organ, and then it just does advanced like checks on those organs, and it lets you know if there's anything cropping up with like early diagnostics or anything. But that seems like something that I could imagine more people would be down for as to the nanobots, like going and having like a barcode put on all your organs, and then it just flashes if there's something wrong with it, instead of having millions of robots pumped into your veins.
Yeah, this one is something that I have heard of before, and I'm pretty certain they've already got some sort of, I'm not sure if it's like a tattoo or some sort of like a stick-on tattoo kind of thing, patch, for things like diabetes.
Yeah,
they're able to measure sort of like blood sugar levels, and yeah, I think it will be really quick to come about if it isn't already here. But I'm certain I've already seen sort of like diabetic patches that are able to monitor blood sugar levels as these sort of like tattoos kind of thing. So, but yeah, I think that's a really interesting one, and it sort of seems that it's on the right side of this line before things start to get weird, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It seems sort of quite sensible. It seems obvious without some of the like nanobot or brain interface kind of worries, I guess.
One thing I will just say, which has just cropped up into my head, nanobots and stuff actually might be pretty cool for pets. Just thinking off the top of your head, because like imagine if like when your pet makes a noise or something and you don't know what's wrong with it, Imagine like if you could, like if the nanobots could be like, oh yeah, your cat just needs a wee, or oh your cat's just hungry, or oh your dog has got loads of extra energy it needs to burn, kind of thing, or something like that. Like that's kind of cool. Like we could potentially be able to like not talk to animals, but just understand them.
Yeah.
Like understand their brain waves, or like put the nanobots into them so that if they get ill or something, we can be told, oh, this is what's wrong with them and stuff. It's just interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I'd literally just thought about that now, and I was like, oh my God, that's kind of cool. Because like, I'd love to know why my cat's meowing. Like, oh, like imagine if your app just pops up and it's like, oh, your cat's stressed. I'd be like, oh, okay.
Oh, but then you get a message that just says your cat thinks you're a jerk.
Your cat wants you to come home. Or your cat figures it out, or there's like some faulty in the code, and it just every time your cat like rubs its head on the table, it's like sends the wrong signal, and your phone keeps going off all night. But
Yeah, it'd be pretty cool though.
it would be cool. I'd be really interested in seeing if there's anything they could do with like the animals, because I swear when they would even with like the Neuralink with Gertrude and all of that, they were like being able to tell if the pig was hungry and stuff, weren't they? So maybe you can. Maybe you could have like basic understandings with your animals, because I guess going a little bit more out there with like the whole idea of aliens and stuff, we do kind of have to figure out a way to purvey ourselves better if we're ever gonna stand a chance of talking to something that isn't of this place. But no, that's pretty much it for me and my little biotechnology research.
No, I think it's a really interesting one, and it's a bit different this episode, I think, but I think it was quite cool sort of reading about this sort of stuff, and hopefully other people found it interesting and things.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good topic, and it's something that I think a lot of people are still sleeping on. It can be seen as a very futuristic sci-fi topic, but it's actually happening.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But,
so shall we head on to the news then?
Yes, let's move over to the news for the week.
So, do you want to take the first one?
Yeah, so I'll go first. So, first little bit of news, good old SpaceX with some more launches. Obviously, that's not great for the whole space debris situation, but SpaceX have launched another 60 Starlink satellites, and that is now the 100th Falcon 9 flight. And I think I saw something online yesterday that it was the 7th time that rocket has been used, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. That's I think that's for me, it's the most interesting thing actually. A sort of idea that they've shown that they can use rockets sort of multiple times. Yeah, obviously that was done with the space shuttle, but this is very much a quicker turnaround sort of time, isn't it?
Yeah, no, and I think, and it's like you said, it doesn't sound that special, but it is, because it's like if you look back in the days when people were exploring with boats and sailing out to sea, you wouldn't sail out in the direction and think, well, this is a one-way trip because my boat's gonna fall to pieces before we get to the island and I'm not coming back. So yeah, it's really, really cool. But yeah, so they launched the 60 more SpaceX satellites, and then I've got something else for NASA, but do you want to jump in on your bit first?
Yeah, I think the first one I'll go with is this week in the news of OneWeb has emerged from bankruptcy. So I know we spoke about it previously on the podcast about how the UK government has taken I think it's a majority stake, or they're certainly being seen to operate it. This OneWeb. So OneWeb was a sort of again, sort of like Starlink for SpaceX, this space-based communications Wi-Fi kind of thing. They've already got satellites up there, and from reading the sort of articles and news about it, the UK government has effectively taken control of those as part of OneWeb's operations. There's, I think, another 7 satellites scheduled to go up in December, and that's now going ahead. But the interesting thing for me was, when we sort of spoke about this before, we spoke about how the government wanted to replicate Galileo now that the UK wasn't part of the sort of Galileo project for Europe, which is basically Europe's version of GPS. And I said at the time how I don't really see that's how it's going to work, because GPS is nothing like telecommunications.
Yeah.
And reading the article, there's no mention of sort of GPS capability at all. It sounds like it's not going to happen. It seems that the UK government has some aspiration to own a company that runs space Wi-Fi.
Okay.
And I don't really know why, because the whole thing with SpaceX is it's a private enterprise, and like all telecommunications, it's sort of naturally done by private enterprises.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird to have the government operating and running Wi-Fi and internet services.
Yeah, that is weird.
But that's what they seem to be doing, unless they have a plan to spin OneWeb out as a company again, sort of like I guess they've done with BT, and spin it out as a private company to, I don't know, show that Britain does space stuff. But...
Yeah, maybe that's the goal. Maybe they want to like have the best space internet and then try and sell that back to other countries or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, I thought they were doing a GPS thing. That's interesting then, if they're just going for Wi-Fi.
Well, I've got it's off the government website, and there's no mention of GPS sort of location services at all. So,
are we just not going to have any GPS then, or are we going to still carry on using Galileo?
So the thing of, I know GPS definitely, and I'm pretty sure Galileo will be the same. Anyone that has a receiver can get the signal. You can use GPS.
Cool.
GPS is the American one, and we can use that. That's no problem. So we'll be able to use it, but it's obviously the ability to control and influence it. You know, do it might be that we want a satellite at this location and in this orbit because that would be good for this thing.
Yeah.
We don't have any say over that. And also, I think Galileo will have. Galileo will definitely have it. There's usually a higher precision military science sort of frequency that can be used, which can only be accessed if you're a member of it.
Yeah.
So with GPS, we can use GPS, and I think you get sort of 1 meter resolution. You can usually find your location within sort of a meter or 2 or 3 meters.
Yeah.
There is a military signal that is reserved for the US and people that sign up to use it, and it will be the same with Galileo. So we don't have access to that higher precision one. And I think my sort of view is they sort of bought OneWeb to say, we can do space stuff, and we can do space stuff, just not the space stuff that maybe they had in mind.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably a positive story that OneWeb is out of bankruptcy and seems to be pushing ahead with launches and stuff. So
yeah,
I think that's good.
That's awesome. Just quickly on the UK space stuff, I think I saw that they're building a spaceport now, aren't they? Up on one of the islands off Scotland.
Yep.
So that'll be pretty cool, because aren't they planning on doing the first home rocket launch by like 2035 or something?
Yeah, so as far as I can see, they've got a plan to relatively soon start launching rockets from the UK. That again, it will be limited, so it will be used. I sort of spoke to someone on Twitter about it. They will be used for polar orbits, which are good. They can be used for some stuff, but the reason why NASA launches a lot of stuff from Florida and Russia uses a lot of stuff in Kazakhstan and things is that if you're closer to the equator, you get a bigger boost from the rotation of the Earth. At the equator, you're basically spinning faster than you are near the poles. So, it's good to have a capability, and it will definitely be used for some stuff. But it probably won't be that we're completely self-sufficient for our launches for stuff that we want to do, particularly for geostationary orbits where you really need to be on the equator or near enough to get the speed to do it. So,
well, we just signed a deal with the US as well, didn't we, for the Artemis stuff? So we'll be best friends with them for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my next piece of space news is we're heading back over to NASA, and effectively it's just NASA are building their mega rocket for the moon missions in 2030. So it's called the SLS, and it's a giant rocket that's going to be sending astronauts back to the moon this decade. The first crewed landing is targeted for 2024, and the rocket is scheduled to make its debut in 2021. And it is a 65-meter long core stage with 4 engines that are flanked by 2 twin-solid fuel boosters. And if you look at this thing, it looks like they've got the Shard in London and put it on its side. Thing looks insane. It's going to produce 8.8 million pounds of thrust, or 3.1 meganewtons of thrust, which is just insane. Yeah.
So this is effectively the new Saturn V. For anyone watching on the video, you can see my Lego Saturn V here. So this is the new rocket that's going to get us to the moon. And I know you're like a massive SpaceX fan and stuff, but for me personally, this sort of NASA building massive rockets is the golden age of space, isn't it?
I totally agree with you. Yeah. Whenever NASA's doing anything crazy and big and just going somewhere, I'm down. Yeah, it's awesome.
It looks incredible. It's a huge thing, and this is meant to be the rocket that gets people back to the moon in 4 years' time. So I can't wait to see this thing launched next year.
I know. I can't wait to start watching like launches when we go back to the moon and when we start going to Mars and stuff. I'm actually going to lose my mind. Yeah. Even when we send like probes to Venus, I'm going to start getting like super pumped when like what is it, Rocket Lab are going to be doing that. But like as soon as we have like crewed missions to the moon and Mars, and we start doing like the space station that we're putting on the moon and stuff, like it's going to be awesome.
This thing, it's difficult to say, like when you look at it side by side with like the Falcon 9 rockets and things like that, just how huge this thing is.
No, it's going to be insane. I think they did do a it's not a static test, but they have like fired it, haven't they, in the desert? I swear there was a video where they like
I can't.
It looked like they were firing it into a mountain or a tunnel or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think they have it on like a test rig on its side that's able to like measure the force it puts out, and I think they fired one engine. It might have been one solid rocket booster, but they fired parts of it in static tests. But yeah, the news, the reason why this was in the news today was that they've actually started putting the components together to build the base of the main stage. Yeah. So this is actually building the first rocket that will launch as a test. So can't wait.
I swear we've got a Starhopper jump test soon as well, haven't we? I think SpaceX have just finished building like their first one. They put like the fins and everything on it, haven't they? It looks really cool.
Yeah, I think that's December time.
Yeah.
That. And I thought this one was going to launch up to tens of thousands of feet.
Oh, maybe I don't know.
I don't think it's quite at space, but I think it's basically launched to a high altitude and then testing like the descent of it.
Oh yeah, because don't they want a belly flop with it? Don't they they want it to go up and then
it literally looks like a massive falling trash can.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of moon news, more space news. It's been a big week. China, I think it was yesterday now. Yeah, it was yesterday. So yesterday, as in the 24th when we're recording this, they've launched Chang'e 5, their latest probe, and this is going to be the first thing to retrieve lunar rocks since the 70s. So again, massive step for China in their space program. But yeah, looking back at it, the last thing to retrieve moon rocks was the Soviet Union. and one of their probes back in 1976, sorry, was their last one. And they collected 170.1 grams of lunar rock. The Junger 5's probe is attempting to collect about 2 kilograms worth of rock. So scientifically interesting that they're going to get this stuff back. They're going to a new part of the moon that we've not collected from before, called Ocean of Storms, which sounds awesome.
Yeah, it does sound awesome.
It's this massive. It's basically a massive, very old comet impact, a big basin that we've not sort of been in before. So potentially some interesting science coming out of that with these lunar rocks are returned. And again, for the technology, for China, it's a massive step, and for humanity, going back to the moon to collect rocks for the first time in 1976 is 4 years.
It's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, when you look at a date and I still think like 1918, think that's like 20 years ago.
Yeah. Especially anything in like the 2000s, it does not cross my mind that it's like a decade to 20 years old.
Yeah. But yeah, reading through their sort of thing, it seems like quite a Apollo kind of mission. They're going to send, obviously, the rocket itself. There's going to be an orbiter, and then the lander will go down, and the lander will have an ascender and a returner. So again, sort of like, again, it isn't not the scale, but the Eagle lander, you have the Eagle sort of go down, and then the return capsule that meets back out of the orbiter, and then will return to Earth. So they're expecting it to descend and land in December, and I've not seen any confirmed dates of when it's coming back.
Yeah, that's cool though.
Oh no, from start to finish, the mission will last more than 20 days. That's the plan. So I think potentially early next year we could see it come back.
Yeah.
Which would be fun.
Have we had anything more about when we spilt all those tardigrades on the moon? Or has that just kind of been...
No, in 2020 they've probably developed into some planet-eating civilization.
They've become sentient and they've decided they don't like us anymore. Yeah. Mate, I tell you what, actually, just quickly, I watched a film called Life and it scared the hell out of me. Have you seen... I've seen this?
Trailers for it. I've not watched it.
Oh my god!
Is it good?
It's weird because I really wanted to watch like a horror space film because there isn't many, and I'm not really a fan of like gruesome horror films. They kind of freak me out and I get all freaked out by it. So I was like, I want to watch something a little bit scary in space, but that film scared the hell out of me. I've never when I watched it, I was like, oh my god, that's like changed my viewpoint on it for like ever. Like just being in space and having something hunt you down that you can't get off the thing scares the hell out of me. But yeah, really cool film, and it kind of plays on the idea of like worst case scenario of what can come from collecting rocks. So if you haven't watched it, go and watch it. Anyone listening, if you're interested in like space horror films, I'd go and check it out. It will keep you up at night.
I will watch that because that's actually something I wanted to do a future episode about, and I've got an interest in. It's sort of like space contamination. Because like back in the day, I know when they sent the like Apollo missions, there was a massive concern about stuff coming back to Earth, and like the astronauts had to quarantine for days, and all of the I think like the lunar rocks and stuff were like autoclaved to kill anything.
Yeah.
There is like a big there was a big concern. It seems to relax a bit more now, but there's still very, very strict rules about sending stuff to areas of interest. So like usually when you send stuff to Mercury, your probe does its thing and you can then just crash it into Mercury as it burns up. Certain bodies, I think Venus might be one of them, Mars, some of the moons like Europa and things, you basically cannot go near without some very, very serious sterilization. So yeah, that's something actually I'd like to do an episode about in the future. So.
Yeah, I'd be game to do that. But yeah, check it out if you haven't. And that pretty much wraps up this week's episode, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did. It was something a little bit different, a little bit more fun. If you've got any suggestions for topics in the future, be sure to hit us up on social media at the Infinite Void Pod. Or if you want to drop us a more lengthy email, it's theinfinitevoidpodcast@gmail.com. And you can hit me up on social media at Jacob E. Carson, and you can hit Matty up at the Matty JMP. And that's pretty much it. We'll see you in the Infinite Void next week.